Kimito is a worthless scum loser who's only useful for running errands. This changes when he's dragged off to a prestigious all-girls school for a human experiment. Now he's desired by all the girls and gets to clap them for free, but it all started when, as usual, Kimito's wasting away at school when his classmate sends him on her regular errand. On his way, he's suddenly grabbed by some WWE bouncers who bundle him in a car, display some Magic Mike moves, and drop him in front of the school. Next, Kimito is welcomed by a maid, Miyuki, who narrates the situation with their clueless Barbie princesses and how they act like first graders in society after graduating. She says that he was selected as a sample for the girls to observe and get an idea of what mediocrity looks like. Also, they picked him out of the other wasted idiots because he's never had a female crush and only hangs out with dudes. He denies this absolute slander of his manhood, but the ladies threaten that if he's indeed as straight as he claims, will have to be castrated before he turns their school into a baby mama condo. Kimito loves his sausage, so he quickly claims that John Cena is his type to put them at ease. He's then taken to his new class and welcomed by the class rep Reiko. Just then, his phone rings, and the girls get all curious because they're still living in the Stone Age. So they don't know what a phone is, so Miyuki explains what it is, and they run to get a closer look at it. They're so impressed by the device that Reiko creates an entire Valentine package to thank Kimito for letting them have a peek at civilization. As she hands it over to him, however, she trips and Kimito catches her. Because this is her first time being touched by a guy, Reiko faints on the spot, and while her class girls attend to her, one of the girls drags Kimito out to the field. She pins him to the ground and tries to force a kiss on him, believing that her wish will be granted by the kiss of a commoner. Kimito roasts her for being so dumb and believing in such a myth, but they're interrupted by the other girls, so the girl takes off immediately. Reiko introduces the girl as Eika and explains that she's always acting so bitchy to them, and they don't get why. Later, Miyuki picks up Kimito and takes him to his room, telling him that they spent $1 million creating the perfect room for him. Kimito's expecting to see a 5-star room in Ibiza, but is disappointed to find that they wasted all that cash transplanting his old room. Quickly, Kimito runs off to tear off the thirst strap he'd normally beat his meat to.
What do you mean by that?
Knowing that it could lead to him getting castrated. Miyuki tells him that she's been assigned as his personal maid, but he shouldn't expect her to actually work for a broke fool like himself. Later, Eika storms in and blames Kimito for not granting her wish, but she soon gets distracted and becomes excited to see the stuff in Kimito's room. She asks him to show her the ways of the commoner, hoping it will make her wish come true, which is to become the most popular girl in her class. Kimito tells her that if she's doing that just to get friends in class, it's pointless, as she could still achieve this by being a normal girl. Eika tells him that he doesn't know her backstory, so he should shut that up. Kimito tells her that she's the one isolating herself from her classmates because they're always trying to reach out to her. Tearfully, Eika accepts that this is the case, but says that she doesn't really want to keep living like that because she's lonely and bored as heck. To cheer her up, Kimito hands her a gamepad, and she thanks him, and out of the blue, she immediately asks him to teach her how to be a commoner, because that could gain her some popularity in their school. With this, Eika declares that they're now members of the Commoners Club, which she basically just formed on the spot. He agrees, and she goes back to playing her game. The following morning, Miyuki wakes Kimito up and insists on taking off his clothes, and even though this further hardens his morning wood, he can't act like a straight man. They head out through the back, but bump into Eika on the way. He says he's pretty uncomfortable being followed by the maids because it doesn't happen that way in the commoner's world. Then he asks her to teach him what life is like as a student in their school. Eika says that Reiko would be the right person to tell him all about their school. But Kimito tells her that the class rep is just too hot for him to talk to, unlike Eika, who's an ugly basic bitch. She punches the stupidity out of him, and when they meet Reiko, Eika walks out in annoyance. During their activities of the day, Reiko continues to set new records and impress her mates, while Eika is a total flop and seems to have no single ounce of talent in her bones. Surprisingly, Kimito performs well on the high jump, so the girls flock around him like he's Cristiano Ronaldo. Later, Reiko notes that she saw Eika and Kimito talking together in the morning, and she asks him how he managed to get on her good side, because they've been trying since forever. Knowing it won't be cool to share Eika's reason for snobbing the rest of them, Kimito just presents another excuse, and Reiko is pleased to see that the situation with Eika isn't completely hopeless. Later, they walk into a grand hall and the girls in the hall act like he's a celebrity of some sort. When he's given the menu, it looks like Arabic. So Aika asks for an actual Japanese meal, but Miyuki serves him instant ramen, much to his distaste. The other girls quickly request the same meal, but Reiko remarks on how strange it is, leading Kamito to understand that they've never seen ramen. When he tells them that instant ramen can be prepared by just adding some hot water, they get curious and excited, so Reiko asks the maids to serve the meal in their best ceramic ware. Kamito thinks it won't taste as great as they're expecting, but the girls surprisingly fall in love with it, saying that they've never had such a savory meal. Later, Reiko throws a welcoming party for Kamito and asks him to dance, but that would be the worst mistake of her life because he spins her until she passes out. Later, he meets Aika, and she asks him to begin their commoner tutorials. She comes across his manga and becomes so engrossed in them that she finishes them all by nightfall. Afterwards, she asks Kamito why he never told her that high school kids could possess superpowers, and then she shows him how determined she is to activate her inner powers so she can become popular. After a lot of practice, Aika believes she's now the Flash and can freeze time. She commands time to halt and confirms it by watching if Kamito is frozen in time. After confirming this, Aika becomes joyous and excitedly flashes her undies at Kamito. Then she moves closer to write something on his face. However, Kamito can't keep up with the act for much longer, so he kisses her but gets punched. He hits back at her by telling her that her powers are fake and that he was just pretending. Later, Reiko steps out of the bath and unexpectedly bumps into Kamito in her plotless state, so he takes a good look at her, appreciating her curves and how good it'll feel to make her scream daddy for at least 2 minutes. As he leaves, Reiko decides that he definitely has to wife her, so later in class, she mentions something about their wedding, while Kamito watches in confusion as she begins to lose her mind. The next day, Kamito finds out that his parents traded him for an Airbnb. He's pretty bummed about this betrayal, and even worse, the girls at school won't let him catch a break, not even to use the bathroom. He finally gets some time to himself, but sees a blue-haired girl kneeling in front of a headstone. As if it's not creepy enough, the weirdo takes off her clothes and bows to the monument. So before people get the wrong idea, Kamito quickly scoops her away and takes her to his room. The girl gets up and asks Kamito if he undressed her, refusing to believe that she did it, and when he tells her to put on her clothes, she says that she can't do it herself. Kimono then helps her get dressed, and she introduces herself as Hakuo, saying that she was at the lab when he got introduced to the whole school, so she doesn't know him. He hears her stomach rumbling and serves her some ramen, but she says she can't eat it. However, when she tastes it, Hakuo gobbles it down and leaves no crumbs. She suddenly falls asleep, but Kimono jerks her awake, and she gets up like a zombie, scribbling as she did earlier while undressing herself at the same time. This time around, Kamito is unlucky, and Aika walks in on him trying to help Hakuo, calling him a pervert when she sees his hand on Hakuo's rice cakes. Later, he takes her home. The maid thanks him for watching over the girl. Apparently, Hakuo is a math genius, and the weird things she scribbles are her own version of Einstein's laws. The maid offers to serve Hakuo lunch, but is surprised to find that she's already eaten, and even more surprised to see that Hakuo won't let go of Kamito when he turns to leave. Before leaving, Kamito tells her to come by and visit anytime, and when he leaves, Hakuo's maid tells the other maids what had just transpired. They're equally shocked because Hakuo is a die-hard nerd, and books are basically her own version of TikTok. Besides that, they're shocked about the ramen too, because Hakuo is low-key suffering from OCD and only eats what's on the menu for the day. Hearing this, they suspect that their girl now has a crush on Kamito, even though she's a nerd and looks younger than her age. Later, Kamito is out on a walk with Reiko when a black-haired lady suddenly storms towards him and starts wielding her sword the moment she sees a bug. Watching this, her colleagues start hailing her for being a notorious feminist because she confidently referred to Kamito as a worthless bug. Surprisingly, she goes along with it, introduces herself as Karen, which is not so surprising, and starts chasing poor Kamito with her sword. She then activates her inner Hashira and pulls off an impressive technique that shreds the ladies' dresses off, causing them to be shy. It doesn't get better because Kamito's clothes also fall off and the ladies look away, though there's really nothing but a tiny bulge of his pickle. Karen gets pissed and won't stop chasing him, so he decides to put an end to her insanity and faces her head-on, but somehow he lands directly on her cookie jar. To make matters worse, Kamito's underwear gets ripped off and his magical wand tickles her glory hole. It feels so good that Karen passes out, but she wakes up and asks him just how strong he is when compared to other commoners like him. He tells her that he's pretty weak in the real world, and Karen feels disappointed because she lost to the weakest man alive. Her clothes fall off too, and she thinks this was also Kimido's secret attack when it really was all hers. Immediately, Karen drops to her knees and surrenders to Kimido, calling him her master and giving him the right to use her however he sees fit. The whole school later hears about this and gossips about how awesome commoners are. Later, Eika presents another one of her stupid ideas which she plans to implement in order to become a popular girl, which is that she's going to invite the whole school to party all at once. Kimido tells her that the plan would require her to have lots of cell phones, and their school is isolated from civilization. However, Hakuya tells him that she can help with that, because she has produced them before. She sits right in front of his crotch, so Eika tells him that she's trying to turn him on and that he shouldn't be deceived because Hakuya is actually older than she looks. Kimido doesn't believe this and refuses to let her go, and they're later joined by Karen, who reminds Kimido that she's still his servant and will watch him closely until she's strong enough to take him out. Later, the phones come in and Eika decides to take a selfie, but Hakuya asks to take one with Kimido, so they all try to fit it in. But when Karen says that she also wants to partake in the selfie, their vibe just dies. Later, Reiko invites Kimido to a tea party in her room, but Eika gets jealous and drags him away, reminding him that they have unfinished business and emphasizing on her dumb plan to become popular. She blackmails him and says he's just desperate to be in Reiko's underwear, so he calls off his plans with Reiko, who calmly says that it's all good. At the party, the other ladies wonder why Kimido is too busy to attend, so Reiko says that he's with Eika, who's probably just seeking his advice concerning her relationship with the other girls. However, one of them says that Eika could be overdoing it because she once overheard her having so much fun with Kimido. This makes Reiko so sad, but she withholds her emotions. Meanwhile, Eika tells Kimido that she intends to serve a common food at the party, so he suggests that she try some Yumayambo candy. The other ladies keep talking about them, speculating more about the relationship and even pointing out that Eika and Kimido are alone in a room, so they could be up to some really naughty shit. After a while, Reiko gets fed up and tells the yapping bitch to shut up, that she walks out. The friend she yelled at starts crying, and Kimido watches from afar. Later, Reiko also sobs in her room, and Kimido comes to check in on her, but she says that she isn't willing to discuss it. He asks her if it has anything to do with him, and she's so surprised that he could guess that, so she runs to meet him, though she denies that he's the principal cause. Over tea, she narrates what happened between her and her friends earlier, saying that she'd never experienced such a feeling before. Kimido returns to his room and finds Eika waiting for him, then narrates the situation to her. He ponders for a while and thinks of a way to mend things up, then figures that a party will probably work out, since it's a large-scale beef. Just then, Eika pops in her solution and reminds him about the plan she had earlier to invite everyone to a party and become the most popular girl in her class. He doubts her, but she tells him that she can't stand the tension between her classmates and definitely wants to rescue the situation. Seeing her determination, Kimido offers to help her fix up some snacks, but he headbutts him really hard and walks out. The following day, Kimido addresses the whole class and introduces the new commoners' after-school experience party. He's joined by Reiko, who's dressed like a regular girl and looks so hot that they question their orientation. She takes out a phone and rings them up, then tells them to check their message inbox. When they do so, they find an apology letter addressed to all of them, and Reiko bows to apologize, especially to her friend, Kei. Kei tells her not to worry, and Reiko offers to make it up to her by taking a selfie of them. Kei says she'll forever treasure the photo, and then Reiko offers to take some with the other girls too. Afterwards, Reiko thanks Kimido for thinking of such a grand idea to reconcile her with her friends, but he tells her that it was all Eika's idea, and she zones out, trying to piece her suspicions together. Angrily, she storms into his room and tells Eika that she hates her and can't stand her guts. Eika is confused and asks Reiko if she heard everything from Kimido, but she says she did, yet she rushes straight at her and pulls her hair. She pins her down and tells her that she's been avoiding her over something so trivial, but Eika kicks her back and tells her that she doesn't understand her feelings. While the ladies go back and forth arguing, this dumb cultured idiot is focused on their thighs rocking against each other. However, Eika throws a pillow at him and he falls, leading the girls to pause their fight. Later, Eika says that she's cool being friends with Kimido alone and doesn't intend to make things right with Reiko. Later, they're joined by Hakuya, Karen, and Reiko, who say that they want to be members of the Commoners Club. Eika isn't about to let this happen, especially because of Reiko. Reiko sarcastically says she's willing to be friends with Eika, but she could always use the door if that won't fly with her.
Damn!
This gets them to resume their fight from earlier. On the other hand, Hakuo is solving math on the wall, displaying her tiny plots for the world to see. Right now, Kimito can do with a break, but Miyuki walks in with a pair of gigantic scissors to chop the thing between his legs. He quickly plays a video showing bodybuilders dancing and continues to proclaim his love for them. The maid then calms down and apologizes for her mistake, but the other girls are surprised to see a different side of him, so they call him a cultured fool. The next day, Kimito finds Hakuo lying in his bed with no clothes on, so he tells her to get dressed and suggests potato cakes for breakfast. While he prepares breakfast, she asks to join him, so he places her on a chair and gives her some dough to shape into balls. Seconds later, Hakuo goes into mad scientist mode, takes off her clothes, and starts writing on the wall. He serves her breakfast and asks her some riddles, but Hakuo doesn't know how to solve them because she spent her grade school years disproving Newton's laws of motion. After trying her with some, Kimito tells her that she really stinks at solving riddles, but this pisses her off. He returns her home and finds that she has a plushie made after his image. She quickly kicks him out, feeling embarrassed. Meanwhile, Eika, Reiko, and Karen meet together, gossiping about how unusually close Hakuo is to Kimito and expressing that they can't stand it. For one, Hakuo clings tightly to him and no one else, and when his attention drifts away from her, she's stripping for him. Karen at this point just wants to kill him and raises the point that Kimito could be getting really nasty with Hakuo, so it'll be best to stop him before things get really essy. Later, they all wait in Kimito's room, and when Hakuo shows up, they tell her to hang with them because Kimito's currently out. She definitely can't stand these dumb hags, but she agrees to stay, though she buries all her concentration in a book. They try to get her to take some tea, then fix a buffet of various meals and try to hand feed her, but neither of these works. The situation's pretty hopeless, so Reiko calls her nanny, who brings the meal of the day. As soon as Reiko serves her the meal, Hakuo digs into it and soon gets into her mad scientist mode. They try to stop her, though Karen becomes obsessed with Hakuo's rice cakes and bleeds from having too much fun with them. The girl finally sleeps and her maid comes to pick her up, but as she leaves, she says that she and Kimito are just friends and asks them the riddle he had asked her recently. While the other girls struggle to make sense of it, Reika gets it on the spot, and even Hakuo finds this strange, because only normal people like Kimito can get the answer. Later, Kimito plays a game with his best friend's character, and Eika gets curious about it, so he tells her that his friend is a voice actress for the game. Eika picks it up and starts playing with it, then becomes engrossed in it, while Kimito is called to the principal's office. Reiko joins in and tries to make small talk, but Eika isn't up for all that fake love, so she asks her to leave the room. Reiko refuses to, and she makes fun of Eika's grandma underwear, so she gets pissed and decides to return to her room. However, when she learns that this could be an opportunity for Reiko to be alone with Kimito, she quickly changes her mind. They browse through his library of mangas and note that most of the mangas are centered around women. Eika finds a drink in his refrigerator and refuses to share it with Reiko, but Reiko puts on a pitiful face and gets her to change her mind. She pours the drink into cups and they both gulp on it, but they immediately spit it out at the same time. Their clothes get wet as a result, so Eika strips hers off and Reiko follows suit, revealing an intimidating pair of huge melons that resurrect Eika's insecurities. They struggle over Eika's uniform, and she ends up buried underneath Reiko's heavy sacks, almost suffocating to death. Somehow this gets them into another fight, and Kimito walks in to find them on each other. Then when he sees the girl Mang on the floor, everything makes sense to him. The next day, Kimito learns that there's a new park curated for the ladies to have a deeper experience of the commoner culture, something they call Shomenland. They request that he teach the students over there more about the life of a commoner, because they've had positive feedback about his effect on the ladies, not to mention that this is the most important project he'll be tasked with. When they arrive, Eika is almost shitting her pants due to anxiety, but Kimitop tells her to chill and practice all she's been learning from him at the Commoners Club. The ladies get in and are excited to see an outdoor setting with a road, crosswalks, and side shops. Miyuki heaps a bunch of toilet paper on Kimito like he's suffering from diarrhea, and gives him no suitable explanation for why she did him like that. With a little tour, they take them to a low-budget version of McDonald's and guide them on how to place an order. The girls are dismayed to find out that they'll have to wait in line until it's their turn, but somehow they become excited to find that it's self-service because they're eager to get rid of the spoiled brats in them. Miyuki tells them that they're in a fast food restaurant, so they don't have to worry about waiting for hours, and their food might be ready in as short as a minute. They tell them to place their orders, and Kimito again reminds Aika about the practice sessions Tihai had earlier. However, Aika just disappoints him when she refuses to step forward, even after his silent nudging. As expected, Reiko volunteers to place her order first, but she starts fumbling. Again, Kimito urges Aika to step forward, sees the opportunity to shine and take the spotlight like she's always wanted. When he sees that she's just a waste of talent, he steps forward and helps Reiko place the order. When the girls settle down to eat, Aika goes to a far-off corner to eat. Kimito digs into his burger, and he's overwhelmed by the luxurious taste of the meat, but he's still dissatisfied with it because it's not exactly a Max burger like what he's used to in real life. He steps out to declare war on them for making a caricature of a great burger, but he just looks like an idiotic town crier. Later, they head out to the arcades, but are instantly attracted to the stuffed animals, totally ignoring the dancing games that Kimito had suggested because of how good Aika was at those games. He heads over to her place and tells her not to worry because the others will eventually come her way and watch her practice. Just then, some twins ask Kimito to teach them how to play the plushie game, interrupting the conversation with Aika. She walks away and he goes on to demonstrate the game for them, then later to a blondie. With the blonde, his hand brushes against hers and her naughty mind creates the illusion that Kimito is suctioning her and making her cream so much.
What did he say?
After getting her the plushie, the other girls ask Kimito to help them press their buttons and make them scream too. When he sees them developing interest in the dancing game, he demonstrates the dance for them and has two others practice, but they bump into each other as they struggle to keep up with the game. Unexpectedly, however, Aika starts dancing with one of the girls and shows them how super easy it is, and when the game is over, she gets shy all of a sudden. Her dance partner thanks her for putting her through, and the other girls ask her to put them through the game, one after the other. In no time, she's the center of attraction, and the next thing, she's teaching them how to order food at a fast food. From the distance, Reiko looks sad, watching all that spotlight being taken away from her. When they sit to eat, Aika uses herself as a scapegoat to find out what the hole in her cup is for, but she gets burnt on her lips and one of the girls comes to her aid. As the girls talk about texting with Aika, it becomes harder for Reiko to watch, as she can't help the fact that she's now a side character. The whole main character moment keeps rolling for Aika, and after observing her for a while and figuring that she'll turn out just fine, Kimito lets her be and wanders off, then stumbles upon Karen all alone at a section of the boutique. He sees her admiring this really fancy girly clothing, but the moment she realizes that he's staring at her, she becomes jittery and begins to deny herself. She also attempts to attack him with her sword, but he reminds her about how easily he defeated her the other day and even seizes the opportunity to command her, since she's basically his servant. He tells her to strip for him, and she immediately gets on her knees, surrendering her body for him to ravage her as he likes, but he tells her that he just wants her to try on the outfit he caught her admiring, because it's obvious she really likes it. When she puts them on, her hot Kylie Jenner body is so stunning that Kimito begins to worship her. Karen gets really shy amid self-consciousness and starts talking shit about how she doesn't like her really fat thighs, but Kimito shuts her up and tells her that those curvy pillars are the gates of heaven for him. She's touched by his compliment, but being the tsundere that she is, she rewards him by striking him on the head. Meanwhile, Aika is struggling to reply to all the texts from her new friends, so she asks Reiko for her help in reviewing a message she intends to send to the entire class to explain why she's been a bitter bitch to all of them. Reiko hesitates, but Aika hypes her up, saying that she's the most popular girl in their class and definitely knows what the class sentiments are. Reiko takes a look at it and tells her that her text sounds like a motivational yap that no one will be interested in reading, and to worsen it all, the point is still yet to be made. After readjusting her text, Aika agrees that English is actually hard. She tells everyone that she's been avoiding associations with them because her words are like glass shards and she could mess people up with her careless words, just like she hurt her friends in the past. She apologizes to them and asks them if they can all accept her as a friend. Reiko tells her that she doesn't need to do that because she's obviously friends with the whole school already. Meanwhile, Miyuki comes to wake Kimito up with her usual disdainful face and roast his entire being when she says that his brain is surviving on only 5 neurons. Later, he sees Aika getting invited to a tea party after school and calls her aside to call off the whole Commoners Club thing because she's finally accomplished her mission and become popular. She's a bit sad, but they both head their separate ways. Later, Kimido relaxes in the jacuzzi and Eika unknowingly walks in on him. As soon as her friends come in, he dives under the water, holding onto her legs for dear life. She keeps acting weird and turning all shades of pink from the hormonal torture she's going through. Her friends pry into her relationship with Kimido, but she tells them that they're just friends, like you and your bestie. Kimido soon starts losing his breath and decides that he must at least die while doing something he loves. He gropes at Eika's soft hindbuns, and she kicks him into unconsciousness. When the ladies leave, Eika sees Kimido lying unconsciously and draws him out of the water. She then administers CPR to him, but her friends walk in unfortunately and remain scared for life. Later, Kimido regains consciousness, and as he walks in the hall, Eika's friends gossip about how they can't stand the whole drama between them. Even Karen is pissed at Kimido and calls him a liar before spinning him 360. Later, Eika narrates the real story to the girls and Reiko seems to be relieved to find that she didn't really kiss Kimido as rumors had it. She offers to clear the air and tell their classmates that Eika and Kimido aren't really dating, but Hakuya interrupts this as she gets up to hug Kimido. And this makes Eika change her mind about debunking the rumors that she's dating Kimido. Plus, she also feels that Reiko is kind of happy with this little messy situation. Later, they play a dumb fortune-telling game that is no different from the ones used by Zodiac fortune tellers. It seems to be giving accurate predictions of their personalities, but when it comes to Mafia Karen, the game defines her personality as a strongly feminine one, then calls her a lonely old hag. As expected, she gets pissed and denies this, but that's just the way of the Tsunders. They come across a dumb compatibility game, so Reiko suggests that all the ladies should test their compatibility with Kimido. He starts with Eika and gets 80% compatibility, so she gets really hyped and runs out the moment she realizes that she just made a fool of herself. She returns and acts like it's not all that big of a deal, but spites Reiko, saying that she's probably not going to get a high compatibility score with Kimido. Well, she gets to eat her words back because the game prints out a 90% compatibility score and even adds that they'll be happily married. Eika feels like getting swallowed by a huge earthworm and obviously isn't thrilled to hear this. Kimido tries the game on Hakuya, and it says they're only 50% compatible, which is pretty much understandable, though she isn't necessarily thrilled about it. He finally tries it for Karen, but the score turns out to be 0, and the game girl adds that Kimido will definitely die on the first day. Of course, Karen will be Karen, so she quickly threatens to chop his head. But Kimido realizes that she messed up her birthday, so he fixes it up and gets a friggin' 100% score, after which the game adds that the two are a perfect match for each other. An awkward silence lingers for a second, but Kimido eases the tension and reminds them that it's just a dumb game with unreliable accuracy. Reiko and Eika agree with him, obviously because they can't accept that neither of them is nearly as compatible with him as Karen is. The desperate fools start tweaking the game to delude themselves that there's any hope for them. Then they get into an argument over which fortune teller is right. Karen worsens it when she tells them to give it up because the first fortune teller is right, and they begin arguing with her. So Hakuya and Kimido ignore the crazy bitches and head to the kitchen. Later, he gets his usual rude awakening from Miyuki, who tells him that she hates being his maid and wishes she could have his balls for lunch.
Damn.
Afterwards, he binges on YouTube Shorts and is joined by Karen, who decides to do as the game suggested and decides to display her excellent but rather scary sword skills. In the process, she accidentally nicks Kimido's shirt and drags him into her room to fix it. Kimido observes that her room is really simple, but after she offers him tea and goes to fetch her sewing kit, he sees a cute Barbie dollhouse inside. Karen tells him to look away and gets into the outfit he hyped the other day. When she permits him to look, he's hyped and tells her to keep wearing stuff like that. As she sews his shirt, Kimido remarks that she'll indeed make a good wife after all, so she blushes so hard that she almost rips the shirt apart. After that, she offers to sew his inner shirt, but does so in a rather violent manner. She looks at his arms and notes how slender they are compared to her own Hulk arms, but he tells her not to feel bad about them because they're perfect. Later, the girls come searching for them, so they hide in her inner wardrobe, but he ends up landing on her melons and stimulating her so much that she loses control and they fall out. The girls stare in shock and ask Kimido what he's doing with Karen, and Eika picks up his phone and watches the wrestling video. She assumes that he's doing what's in the wrestling video after he tells her that it's some form of fortune-telling. She then urges them to continue wrestling, but he gets pissed. Later, Hakuya's nanny notices that she's becoming obsessed with Kimido, so she excitedly lets the other maids know that Hakuya is in love, and they try to figure out a plan to get Kimito's attention so he can spend more time with her. Meanwhile, the girls become curious about maids in a commoner's life after they learn about maid cafes. Kimito tells them that commoners usually don't have maids and kinda have fantasies about them, so the girls decide to wear maid cosplay suits to please Kimito. They start out acting and Aika throws a tantrum because she's jealous of Reiko's nearly perfect acting skills. They ask him to teach them how maids do it in the commoner's world, and he makes a cringy demonstration of how extra sweet they must be when serving him. At the corner, one of Hakua's maids overhears everything and tells the others that Kimito is into maids, and she's come up with an idea. Next thing you know, Hakua's in a maid costume, playing rock, paper, and scissors with Kimito. Reiko comes forward and asks Kimito if she can sing for him, and as soon as she starts, a mini earthquake happens because her voice sounds like an auto-tune gone wrong. They beg her to stop, and she gets offended because, in her head, she's the pro version of Adele. Later, Hakua's maids see the place in a messy state and move to clean up the mess, so Kimito tells the girls that maids in the commoner's world don't exactly clean after any filthy, broke-ass commoner. He thanks the maid afterwards and she invites him to Hakua's home, then takes him on a tour of the facility. He sees Hakua at her lab, coding at sonic speed. As soon as she takes off her clothes and starts solving math on the wall, her maids come over to clean up and record whatever she's written. Soon, Kimito's presence is known and the maids get excited to see him. Hakua takes him to her little sand playhouse, and while they play, the maids keep making him uncomfortable with their stupid giggles. At lunch, the maids serve him on the same plate as Hakua and have this heart-shaped thing written all over their food. He asks to be served on a separate plate. The maids quickly knock the plates over and he's forced to feed Hakua. They're finding all this to be cute, so when he asks for a spoon, one of them knocks the spoons over. Hakua feeds him and a maid faints from a cuteness overload. Next up, they're served a drink in the same glass with some heart-shaped straws in it, and the maids quickly get rid of the normal ones, so Kimito is forced to drink from the weird straw. Soon as he does, the maids get really hyped and their leader says that he and Hakua look like lovers. Just then, Miyuki comes in and acts like that scary boss that gets everyone on their toes. Even Hakua gets terrified and leaves Kimito behind. As Kimito leaves, the chief maid confirms to see that he's gotten to see a sweet side of Hakua. She's fulfilled when he says he does, so she invites him to visit again sometime. She returns to celebrate with the other maids, and they talk about how strict the chief maid, Miyuki, is. Apparently, someone else was to be chosen in Kimito's place, but the moment she chose Kimito, the decision was final. The next day, Aika meets Kimito for an urgent meeting he called her to attend, which was so important that he ensured to see her alone. Aika's pretty worked up, but he tells her to chill and hands her a wrapped present. She opens it and finds a yellow suit, and Kimito explains that it's the key to her gaining more followers than Ronaldo. He tells her that she's to wear the suit and perform a greeting called Gets, which is pretty popular in the common world. She refuses to believe him because he's tricked her a couple times before, but he shows her a celebrity who did the same thing and became popular. He proves this by showing her that there are almost 1 million search results for the celebrity and his famous move. This interests Aika so much and she quickly tries on the suit, then practices the move a couple times, with more style and intensity at each turn. Soon after she's done, she runs to show everyone the video and Kimito runs after her to stop her. But he bumps into Miyuki and finds himself directly under her dress, looking right at the gates of her fruit garden. As expected, his touch has no effect on her because she's made out of steel, and she also doesn't hesitate to roast him by comparing him to a schoolboy with nothing but wet dreams. As for Aika, she runs down the hallway in her creepy yellow suit, and when Reiko asks her what the suit is for, Aika dismisses her, saying it's none of her business. Soon, Reiko turns to Usain Bolt and catches up to Aika, leaving her no choice but to perform the dumb greeting. Reiko has no reaction and even finds it cringy until she learns the suit was given to Aika by Kimito, and the move is a really popular one. Aika teaches her the Gets thing and she becomes excited. Then they run to show the others. By the time Kimito catches up to them, all the ladies are dressed in yellow suits and have all mastered that dumb thing. Later, Kimito gets on a phone call with a friend and Reiko overhears him telling the friend that he prefers guys to girls because ladies are making his blood pressure shoot. He also says that he misses the scent of guys and wants to return home, so Reiko rushes to inform the others. They immediately plan to act like dudes so he doesn't leave, but since they've never been in contact with other guys, they don't know how they behave. They choose to imitate Kimito himself and Karen starts by showing them how he usually stares with his gaze lowered. She looks like a lizard doing that, so Eika suggests that they imitate how his body moves when he says that he loves mussels. Next thing, they start slamming each other's rice cakes in a really weird manner. Finally, they realize that if they really want to act like men, they'll have to gain muscles like the ones Kimito claims to be in love with. A maid drops a muscle suit, and the ladies struggle over who gets to wear it. So they play a game to decide who gets to wear it. Aika wins the game and puts on the suit, but she looks like she just stole her boyfriend's sweater. The ladies figure that if they really want to turn Aika into a more masculine form, they'll have to apply a few finishing touches. Still, they have to make her smell like a man, and since men smell like meat, they proceed to replicate that scent with some seasoning. After everything, the girls show him what they've been up to, making him wonder what in the hell is going on when he picks up the scent of that sauce. Aika tells him they heard about his plans to leave their school for other men, so they're doing this to make him change his mind. Kimito tells them that they all look like stupid clowns, but they shouldn't worry because he's not going anywhere after all. The next day, Kimito walks into class to get his pencil case and finds Reiko trying to get things in order. They both watch the sunset and a gentle breeze draws his attention to Reiko, keeping his gaze fixed on her for a while. She catches his gaze and after an awkward moment, they start acting like shy idiots. Reiko speaks about how she's unable to see the skies in the city outside the school, so he promises to help her with anything she needs. She tenderly asks him if she can teach him how to arrange flowers, and basically makes it a date between just the both of them, then asks him to address her informally. He declines, but when she insists, he says, "Well, give it a shot." They meet with the others and he accidentally addresses her by her surname, but she nudges him not to forget his promise. The other girls become curious about what this promise is and start bugging her to tell them, but she says it's a secret. They're interrupted when some maids come looking for Reiko to inform her that her mom and brother are visiting, and as she leaves, Kimito is asked to join her as well. They meet Reiko's family and Kimito introduces himself, but her brother despises the idea of having any jerk in his sister's school because he has a sister complex. He confirms that Reiko is unharmed and untouched, then growls at Kimito to stay out of their business. Reiko doesn't take this lightly and asks her brother to apologize to Kimito. Then Miyuki explains that Kimito isn't really going to be a threat because he's into men. To confirm this, Kimito draws near to the dude and starts touching him. But he still isn't all that cool with a cultured fool like that being near his sister. The mother calls him in order and announces that Reiko's wedding has been planned, and that she'll be getting married to Elon Musk's relative. This news is shattering to both Reiko and Kimito, who leave with a heavy heart. Later, Kimito learns from the other girls that their school has always been a breeding ground for brides, and suitors could pick whomever they desired. Kimito asks the girls if they're happy to live like this, and they respond with a sad silence. He expresses his sadness at the culture and says it just doesn't feel right for their own choices not to be heard. They ask him how he plans to help Reiko, but he doesn't have any idea. Before, her aggressive brother mutters something about sharing his email address with him, but the mom calls him away. In no time, the once lively Connors Club goes dry as Reiko is no longer present. Aika then suggests that she'll talk to Reiko through a cell phone since she's no longer in school. With Heku's help, Aika gets through to her and asks her how she feels about the whole marriage thing. Being a usual good girl, Reiko says she'll uphold the tradition like her mother and grandmother did. But Aika expresses that she rejects Reiko's engagement and says that she can't just ghost them like that because life in school feels empty without her. Touched by Aika's words, Reiko also says that she doesn't want to leave her friends behind in school, and she breaks down helplessly, saying that she doesn't know what to do. Reassuringly, Aika tells her that they'll come up with a plan. The next day, she shares this with Kimito, and he remembers that Reiko's brother wanted to share his email address with them, because he's not willing to have his sister get married to any jerk either. Mercifully, Hakua comes through again, saying that she already has the brother's email address. He sends them a message, saying that he'll drive them to the venue so they can break off the engagement. Karen gets hyped and is ready to bring all the violence on board, but they remind her that the two families partaking in the engagement are really powerful. This weighs down heavily on them, but Kimito jerks to life and boosts their morale, saying that he's equal to the task. At night, they creep out of school, but Miyuki catches them and asks what their mission is because, if it's any of Theodum Club activities, she's not interested in interfering. She lets them go after finding out that they're acting in solidarity as a club to fight for one of their own. And then they get into Reiko's brother's car, which is chauffeured by some muscular men. In the car, Kimito asks Reiko's brother, Masomi, why he asked them for help, So he says that the task of upsetting the engagement isn't something that he alone can achieve. Far off from their destination, they see some heavily armed guards surrounding the building. Reiko's brother says that Kimido should create a distraction while he sneaks into the building, but Kimido develops cold feet because he's not ready to die a virgin. Karen, however, is charged up because she believes this to be a perfect opportunity for her to spar with swordsmen. And without warning, she runs to the guards, launches herself in the air, and uses a wind technique to shatter the earth. Next, she lights up her sword and sweeps the fire through the walls, creating an explosion that blows off the entrance. Just when they're about to get in, they're quickly surrounded again, so Karen tells the others to leave these chickens to her, then creates a cyclone that strips the guards off. They encounter a big guy and Masaomi charges at the dude while the others run into the building and up the stairs. There, they encounter drones and Aika handles this with one perfect throw, and they keep charging forward, but soon enough, the overhead doors start shutting down, and they're almost stuck. However, the bouncers help to keep the doors open, and they manage to escape while Hakua hacks the controls and eventually succeeds. They run further but encounter a giant robot, which almost isekais them if not for Karen's timely intervention. With more impressive techniques, Karen successfully stops the robot thing, but a heavy gush of wind strips her of her clothing. Meanwhile, Masaomi is getting beat up by the other big guy, and there's yet to be a clear winner. To hasten the process, Kimido puts on Sonic's shoes, which propel him at lightning speed to the meeting. He interrupts the engagement and confronts Reiko's mom, saying that he's not in agreement with the engagement because Reiko's unhappy. The mother speaks on Reiko's behalf and says that Reiko doesn't mind making this sacrifice for the family. Kimido says she can call him a commoner all she wants, but he's formed a formidable bond with Reiko and the other girls. The mother insists that Reiko has finalized her decision, but Aika steps forward to refute that and urges everyone to let Reiko speak her mind. At this point, she's flooding with tears and the others join her to plead on Reiko's behalf. Reiko speaks up and tells her mother that she no longer wants to be a member of their family. The mother warns her that she'll be forfeiting all her rights to the family's privileges, and Kimido urges her to make the decision and follow him home, because even if he can't give her trust fund baby treatment, she'll be getting piped for free. Reiko's supposed father-in-law says that their son just decided to return to school following Reiko's decision, so the whole matter should be forgotten. After laughing like an evil witch, she permits Reiko to get married to whomever she desires and tells Kimido that he can marry Reiko, since he basically proposed to her. Realizing that he just spoke too much, Kimido struggles to undo everything he just said, but the mother refuses and insists that he'll get married to Reiko, because she hates him so much that she wants to have him as a son-in-law and torture him. The girls oppose this marriage, but Reiko's mom says it's been decided and Masaomi becomes enraged, chasing Kimido around the house because he certainly won't have him near his sister. Meanwhile, Reiko has already gone deep into dreamland and started soliciting top-tier wedding ideas. Later, Kimido apologizes to Reiko for misleading her and her mother with his words. Then the others join in and Reiko asks Kimido if he really was going to take her in if she'd run away from home. He affirms this and she says that she'll definitely run away from home to ensure that this happens. Aika and Karen yell at her for saying that after all the stress she put them through, and from there, their playful bickering continues. Do you think Miyuki would have made a better main chick than Kimido's other girls? Share your thoughts in the comments section, and if you like anime recap, watch this video.